So 20 years after Comfort International began, we spent 2019 highlighting 20 changed lives, and it reminded us that our work is about real people with all their heartaches, their broken pasts, but now living with joy and with hope. The other side of that, though, in 2019, with it being the 25th anniversary of the genocide, was attending a burial of 85,000 genocide victims who had recently been discovered in mass graves. Although we were not actively looking to expand our countries of operation, we got a request from contacts of Comfort Rwanda in South Sudan, and that highlighted the deep levels of poverty and hunger among the children there. So we began a child support project through a local grassroots team in Juba. The Church Leaders Training, the SIMS program, expanded to both Burundi, at a place called Ngozi, and to Uganda at Busia on the border with Kenya. There were so many special beginnings that year, 2019. Land was bought for the building of a transformation centre by our partners Comfort Rwanda. That was for street children, homeless mums and babies, and a mammoth task lay ahead of us and still lies before us to build that. But the positive outcomes that projects have produced were evidenced in the Karongi district projects with genocide survivors and perpetrators. Africa Hope Initiatives is a community of women, many of them ex-prostitutes, who work together to build a better future for themselves. And in 2019, we began a pilot project to look at a partnership with them. And that supported 22 women into business with a 500% increase in income. 2020, of course, was the year that no one foresaw. It became a year also of extraordinary fundraising efforts by our amazing supporters. The charity shop was closed, the visits to churches were prohibited, fundraising gatherings were out of the question, but our supporters found so many ingenious ways to raise funds that we actually finished the year with voluntary income higher than ever before. But in the countries of our operation, the lockdown's bit hard. Poor people don't have reserves, they don't have bank accounts, they don't have food in cupboards, they don't have social security, they don't have so many of the social buttresses that some of us can take for granted. So immediately after the pandemic took hold, we started receiving pleas for help as project members had to use their business capital to stave off hunger, and the demands on the projects for food support really soared. In Congo, the school closures left the teachers without income and on the verge of starvation. And women who were deprived of income went off in search of other income sources in the forest, and so rape cases multiplied. And in Rwanda, the craft group income went virtually to zero. So over the year, we provided many tons of food across those projects. And we were so grateful that all the projects survived, except the cattle project, where we distributed the cattle and closed that project. So the pandemic continued into 2021, but so also did the support that we were receiving. And that was just as well, because a new emergency hit in Congo. The Nyiragongo volcano that overshadows Goma, where we work, erupted, causing a mass evacuation of the city, and people fled with little more than the clothes on their backs. So food and medicine needed to be sent to alleviate the distress and the needs that caused. Elsewhere in Congo, a centre for rape survivors at Karachi was built with a legacy from Flo McEwen, who had recently visited Congo but died shortly afterwards. The Children of Liberty Child Soldiers Project saw many of the young people graduate, and that was an extraordinary testimony to Comfort Congo's work, given the notoriously difficult outcomes of child soldiers' rehab projects. And despite the restrictions of COVID, the work continued. In the Karongi district, a village for homeless families was begun in Gishita. A memorial that we contributed to, which allowed genocide survivors to give their loved ones a decent resting place, was completed in Mabuga. The SIMS Church Leaders Training continued using video links in Uganda. And as many of the Street Kids Rescue projects finished schooling and the Comfort Babies' mums stabilised and looked ahead to a new future, we saw an upsurge towards the end of that year in income generating activities for those projects. So in 2022, as the pandemic bounced its way through several false dawns, Comfort International also experienced its own changes. The long-term staff members, Halcyon and Neil, left us, and Rebecca Ndombe and Ailey Alvin joined. Visits to Africa opened up again, And we had the special joy of welcoming David Gassana to Scotland for his first visit. It was a wonderful time of having David here and share his own story with so many churches and schools and individuals. 3 new projects began in 2022, the Street Kids Rescue Project in Congo, the support of the marginalised and displaced Batwa people in Burundi, a feeding programme for nursery and school children in Rwanda, particularly in Bisesero. The situation in Congo was particularly difficult due to an upsurge in conflict, but the projects continued to develop even there, with new land bought for accommodation for the child soldiers, for the Children of Liberty, and classroom building begun at a new school in Rubaya. Although natural disasters hit every country, less developed nations tend to suffer much greater effects as infrastructural defences are not as prevalent. And in 2023, exceptional rain hit Rwanda in May and led to widespread devastation. Homes and fields were washed away. And so we launched an appeal to raise funding to restore those. And we combined that with an appeal for a new school building at Kambezi in Congo. The role of education in Congo in building a new future for the country is something that Comfort Congo take really seriously. And they're constantly building provision to give children better access to school, and doing that in the midst of huge challenges. The M23 war continues to spread in extent and in intensity, and hundreds of thousands of people have fled the war and are living in displacement camps around Goma, some of them directly adjacent to Comfort Congo schools and directly adjacent to the hospital. And they put a huge strain on those resources as desperate displaced people seek access to education, to health. In addition to that, Comfort Congo found themselves looking after hundreds of orphans and starving children at Sake, which is just along the road from Goma. And as always, they stretched themselves to the limit to meet the emergencies that they found themselves confronted with. In Rwanda in 2023, significant progress on building the Transformation Centre at last began, and the new Street Kids project at Kanombe also began after local authorities asked for help with drug and crime affected street kids. We also began that year the support of Good News International's Joy Centre vocational training programme, and we were really impressed by the effectiveness of that training in equipping local young people from shockingly disadvantaged backgrounds to a life of fruitful and godly productivity. And so to 2024, this special 25th year, as the conflict in Congo continued to engulf more territory, fresh tragedies unfolded. The children at Sake orphanage who had fled to there were once again displaced, and when Comfort Congo sought to gather them together in the displacement camps they had fled to, they found themselves confronted by almost 2,000 children in need of food. So throughout the year, meeting that need has been a real challenge. But it was one of our greatest joys to welcome Giordani, the leader of Comfort Congo, to Scotland, and to experience his infectious passion on his visits to our supporters here. And his visit coincided with our 25th anniversary Thanksgiving service, and that was a time of real joy, of emotion, as we remembered God's grace and goodness to us since 1999. And in September we had the 25th anniversary ball, which was a brilliant event, and we raised over £17,000, and we are so grateful for such a wonderful way to remember our 25th year. The work continues to challenge us. The needs we face don't reduce, but they're increasing. So many people facing unimaginable hardship, heartache, and that look to us for support in their darkest times. So it continues to be our privilege to work with our dedicated partners and to see their passion for the work undimmed by those challenges. This year, the SIMS training program, the Pastors Training Program, has begun a new phase at another venue in Uganda. Land and seeds have been purchased for the Batwa farming project in Ngozi. But every quarter we look at our resources and we cry out to God for help to meet the needs that seem beyond the resources we've got. And our hope is that we never grow weary, that you, our wonderful supporters, never grow weary of doing good, and that we continue to stand together as we seek to bring hope and healing and joy and a future to some of the most broken people on the earth.
Comfort International is celebrating 25 years of ministry in some of the poorest countries in Africa. Thank you for joining us on this journey.